Producing over 500 hours per week of talk radio, GCN Live is a world leader in talk radio. Archives for the following program can be found at gcnlive.com.
Greetings and welcome to The Bright Side, your nutritional program dedicated to the understanding of the vast world of nutrition and nutritional supplementation. I'm your host, Pharmacist Ben, nutritional pharmacist from Boulder, Colorado. I specialize in using nutritional supplements where other healthcare practitioners use toxic pharmaceutical drugs and often deadly medical procedures. If you suspect that there are natural nutritional roads to your vitality and health and well-being and to addressing your health challenges, whatever they may be, but you don't know where to begin, you have come to the right place. As you listen to The Bright Side every day, you are more and more in control of your body. You are more and more knowledgeable, and you know you can overcome any health issue. That's why we're here every day on The Bright Side, helping clear up the sometimes confusing world of nutrition and nutritional supplementation. Over the last 29 years of practicing pharmacy, I've seen drug-free recoveries from diabetes and hypertension and obesity and skin diseases like acne, eczema, psoriasis, rosacea, digestive ailments, autoimmune issues of all kinds. Recoveries that by the standards of modern medicine can only be called a miracle, but what is in the world of the body, what is in the world of biology, standard operating procedure. Because the human biological system is a healing system. It's a regenerating system. It is designed divinely to heal and renew itself on a moment-to-moment basis. And while some folks may call that healing, renewing, regenerating system a miracle, it really is just the way the body works. If you have questions about health or nutrition or prescription drugs, let us help you. Our phone number is 844-236-6010. 844-236-6010. If you're dealing with a health challenge, if you have a loved one dealing with a health challenge, please know if it's a chronic, long-term, degenerative disease, it does not have to be. Chronic degeneration is not the way of the body. Chronic degeneration represents something missing or something wrong. Correct what's wrong, correct what's getting into the system that shouldn't, replace what's missing. You guys, it's as simple as that. Nobody has to suffer. Nobody has to suffer with arthritis. Nobody has to suffer with inflammatory joint diseases. Nobody has to suffer with fibromyalgia, which we're going to talk about here momentarily. Nobody has to suffer with acne. Nobody has to suffer with heart disease. It's not in the body's way. The body's way is to heal. The body's way is to regenerate. We know this. We're witness to this. Every time we cut ourselves, we're witness to this. The bone is stronger at the point of the break. The bone heals stronger at the point of the break. This is the body's way. To heal stronger and bigger and better in response to stress and burden and trauma. If that's not occurring, if regeneration is not occurring, if degeneration is occurring, something's wrong or something's missing. Let us show you how simple it can be to reverse any chronic degenerative disease. Health is simple. Health is easy because it's the body's way. 844-236-6010 is our number. 844-236-6010. If you're interested in purchasing any of the longevity products, head over to brightsideben.com or pharmacistben.com or criticalhealthnews.com. Thank you to Jonty Collier and Robert Lundgren for setting those up. pharmacistben.com, criticalhealthnews.com, or brightsideben.com. And if you're interested in purchasing any of our Truth Treatment products, go to truthtreatments.com. Make sure you take a look at our retinol 5% gel. That's truthtreatments.com. All right. So we're talking vitamin E. I want to finish up a few things about vitamin E, then we'll go on to estrogen and the so-called sex hormones, fertility hormones, youth hormones, hormones that induce or stimulate everything we all love about being alive, energy and healing and beautiful skin and sexuality and fertility and creativity are all under the rulership of the so-called fertility or sex hormones. And we'll be talking about that here momentarily. Vitamin E is related to these hormones. Vitamin E is our protecting vitamin. It protects fats, which can then be turned into hormones. Vitamin E is our fat-protecting vitamin. Anywhere you have fats in the body, you will find vitamin E. The body will direct vitamin E. We use vitamin E to protect fats and skincare products, at least if we're conscious. Most cosmetic companies don't want to mess around with vitamin E. They'll use something called BHT, butylated hydroxytoluene. You've seen it on bread. You've seen that ingredient on bread. BHT also protects the fats and grains, and in bread. BHT is typically used in a skincare product. Not that BHT is necessarily bad. Life Extension recommends using high doses of BHT for cold sores, which is kind of interesting. I like using vitamin E in my skincare products because then you get the benefits of vitamin E in addition to the protection benefits for your product. Anyway, vitamin E is fat protecting in the body. That's where you'll find vitamin E on the outside part of cells. It sits on the outside part of the cells, acting to protect the cell membrane. This is especially true about nerve cells and brain cells, and this makes vitamin E really, really important for the nervous system and the brain. In fact, well, it's also important for the heart and the circulatory system and for the skin. It's important for a lot of things, but certainly it's way important for brain health and for the nervous system, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, movement disorders, Bell's palsy, all of these kinds of health issues. If you're dealing with, or you know somebody who's dealing with all of these kinds or any of these kinds of health issues, get them on 400 IU of vitamin E. Not just any vitamin E. Look for mixed tocopherols and tocotrienols. Mixed, that's the key word, tocopherols and tocotrienols. There's 8 different kinds of vitamin E. You want all 8 kinds. Most vitamin E's are going to give you the alpha tocopherol form, and that's, that'll work. But you might as well get if you're going to be using vitamin E for movement disorders or brain issues or nervous system issues or bipolar disorder or any of the wonderful ways vitamin E can protect your nervous system and your brain, you might as well get the best. And that would be the mixed tocopherol form. Vitamin E can also help if you're dealing with a condition called fibromyalgia. Fibromyalgia is a really, really miserable condition. It can feel like you've got knives stabbing all of your muscles. You feel like your nervous system is on fire. It's a muscle nerve disease. And guess what? Vitamin E can help. According to the journal Cell Biochemistry and Function, this is from June 2009, concentrations of vitamin E were significantly lower in patients with fibromyalgia, and there is a role for fat-soluble antioxidants, i.e. vitamin E, in patients with fibromyalgia. Again, this makes perfect sense when you understand what vitamin E is about. Vitamin E is about protecting fats, the fats that surround your muscle, the fats that surround nerves. Vitamin E is wonderful for pain relief from fibromyalgia, but also for any kind of muscle injury. If you sprain a muscle, or if you tear a muscle, or if you're working out and your muscles are sore, vitamin E is great post-workout vitamin. In fact, if you're a regular kind of a gym rat and you're working out a lot, you'd be smart just to stay on vitamin E, 400 IU a day. Fibromyalgia is absolutely miserable, and if vitamin E actually can help as a pain reliever because of its anti-inflammatory benefits. It also accelerate healing and reduce inflammation, but it actually can have a pain-relieving property. 5 million people in this country have fibromyalgia. It used to be called rheumatism. After it was called rheumatism until maybe the 1960s or 70s, and then they started calling it fibrosis. I remember when I was in high school, I used to hear about fibrosis, and then about somewhere in the early 1980s, people started calling it fibromyalgia. Fibromyalgia is just a description of what's happening. Fiber, muscle, pain. Nobody can... the diagnosis of fibromyalgia is just a classic example of the silliness of the medical model. You go in to a doctor, you tell him your muscles hurt, you got muscle pain, and then he tells you what you have in Latin, and then we think we have this condition. That's what medical diagnostics is. It's a description, and then we call it a disease. Now, description is a verb. This is so important, really. This is not semantics. Check this out. A description of something is it's explaining a process. A process is an action. So descriptions have a verb nature. They're actions. But we turn them into nouns, and then we say we have this condition, this disease. We take this process and then name it. And then that disempowers us because we think we're stuck with something. And we have been stuck with something. We've been cursed with something. A diagnosis is a curse. It doesn't have to be. It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be just a description of what's happening. Fibromyalgia is just you got pain in your muscles. You got fiber, myo, muscles, algia, pain, muscle fiber, pain. It's just telling you what's happening in the body. But then we go and we think we have a sickness or a disease called fibromyalgia. And then we have to cut it out or poison it or somehow remove it instead of reversing it. That's what you want to be thinking about is how do we reverse the process? If there's there's an action that's happening, well, it's a verb, so it's reversible. A noun is not reversible. A verb is. All right, I'm Pharmacist Ben. We'll continue when we come back from our break. 844-236-6010 is our number. You're listening to The Bright Side. We'll be back right after this. We are back on The Bright Side. I'm Pharmacist Ben. Got lines open for you, 844-236-6010, 844-236-6010. If you have questions about the longevity products, formulations, health challenges you or a loved one may be dealing with, if you want to wean yourself off your meds, or if you have a success story you'd like to share, we want to hear from you. Or if you just want to contribute to the conversation, we want to hear from you. 844-236-6010 is our number. If you want to purchase any of the longevity products you hear advertised or recommended on the program, head over to brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com, or you can call the phone team at 866-735-2470, 866-735-2470. And if you want to purchase any of our Truth Treatment skin health products, go to truthtreatments.com, truthtreatments.com. Okay, so we're talking fibromyalgia here. Fibromyalgia, fiber muscle pain. It's a description of what's happening in the body. If you want to deal with a description of what's happening in the body, a verb, a process, what you want to do is you want to reverse engineer, go backwards, deconstruct, figure out what's happening, and then take the steps to go backwards. That's go back the way you came. That's how you deal with a process, with reversing a process. And if dis-ease is a process, that's how you deal with disease. So, fibromyalgia. With apologies to Sherlock Holmes, let's play medical detective here. Let's do some inductive reasoning. Inductive reasoning is where you take a bunch of facts and then you come up with an idea or a theory or a concept that connects or relates all these facts, all these individual facts to each other. So you got muscle fiber pain. Muscle fibers are surrounded with nerves. When these nerves are inflamed, they get sensitized, and when pressure is applied, it hurts. Even when pressure is not applied, just the inflammation will hurt. So inflammation is the key. And no surprise there. This is behind everything. Inflammation is behind all chronic degenerative disease. Period. Period. And understanding this is really how you understand how to reverse disease, because inflammation is attack. Inflammation is defense, really, and defense is attack. Inflammation is a defensive response. It really sums everything up right there. It's all inflammation. Inflammation is a defensive response, and obviously, if you have a defensive response, you want to figure out what the offending agent is. A defensive response can be to either damage or something getting into the blood. Damage can do it. If a cell is damaged, if a tissue is damaged, if a structure in the body is damaged, that can cause a protective response. Or if something is getting into the blood inappropriately, that can cause a defensive response. Sometimes the blood will deposit the toxins and the offending agents in the various tissues in the body, and that can cause a defensive response. Any way you look at it, though, it's a defensive response to an offending agent. Now, here's where fibromyalgia becomes very interesting. 90%, or around 90% of the patients of fibromyalgia patients are women. What that tells you it's going to involve the female hormone estrogen. See how we're working here? Now, if you go to a doctor with fibromyalgia, he's going to tell you it's a mystery. We have no idea. If you understand what I just told you in the last 60 seconds, 120 seconds, you know more than your doctor about fibromyalgia. And it's just common sense. It's not fancy schmancy high-tech medicine. It's just common sense. Inflammatory response, defensive response, offending agent. Most of the patients are women. That means estrogen is going to be involved. Well, estrogen is a pro-inflammatory hormone if it's not processed correctly. Obviously, estrogen is important, but too much estrogen, the wrong kind of estrogen, poorly processed estrogen, all of these can cause an inflammatory response. Estrogen is processed in the gut and the liver. See how we're working here. We're just doing this logically, taking everything backwards. Estrogen's processed in the gut and the liver. That means if you have a gut problem, an intestinal problem, a pancreas problem, a stomach problem, or you have a liver problem, you're going to have an estrogen problem. Estrogen is a fatty hormone. And estrogen toxicity from its accumulation or its presence as a foreign chemical, they call that xenoestrogens, and they're in the water and they're in plastics, or poor estrogen detoxification from intestinal problems and liver problems is extremely common, and fat malabsorption is extremely common. So here are your clues to dealing with fibromyalgia if you're one of the millions of sufferers. Focus on fats.